We are fighting a mass of propaganda.
I have just chaired a meeting of the government's emergency committee, Cobra.
Hail Cobra!
Hail Cobra!
I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself, but I'll be serious from now on.
Where we discussed the details of and the response to the appalling events in Manchester last night. Our thoughts and prayers are with the victims and the families and friends of all those affected. It is now beyond doubt that the people of Manchester and of this country have fallen victim to a callous terrorist attack, an attack that targeted some of the youngest people in our society with cold calculation.
But who benefits from such a horrific attack? Even if you did think it was a hoax, who has the most to gain?
Common battle against militant Islamic terrorism.
Well, okay. Zionists have something to gain, since War Propaganda 101 is to demonize the people you're invading, and Palestine is predominantly Muslim. But just because Bibi is a known, cold, calculating child killer that follows a faith with scripture allowing non-Jewish sacrifice.
Yalkut 245c. Extermination of the Christians is a necessary sacrifice. Sanhedrin 58b. If a goy killed a goy, or a Jew, he is responsible. But if a Jew killed a goy, he is not responsible.
Just because Zionists might have had some motive and the religious freedom to plan such an attack, still isn't evidence linking them to this.
This was among the worst terrorist incidents we have ever experienced in the United Kingdom.
Of course, everyone knows.
Let's get right to that breaking news. You are looking at the Manchester Arena in England, where a suicide bomber set off an explosion last night at an Ariana Grande concert. ISIS has now claimed responsibility.
By the way, ISIS has just taken responsibility for the attack. They say one of their members was the one who perpetrated this horrific crime, killing, we understand, sadly, children.
Why would ISIS do such a thing? Why would they want to take the blame?
There are few terrorist groups who will stoop to this level of depravity where you actively target young little girls and their families at a concert. I mean, we have seen ISIS target civilians, and terrorist groups across the world regularly target civilians, but this seems to have particularly targeted children. Why would you target children? Well, part of the reason you do that is to precipitate a huge outpouring, a reaction, a backlash, anger, grief, rage, and ideally for ISIS, they want to sow the seeds of division. They want to spread this hatred, this perceived war of cultures between Islam and the West. It's that they are trying to do when they launch these types of attacks.
Isn't that exactly what the Zionist outlets do?
When you see these communities and you see these houses, you think this is a British community, or you might have British Muslims. They are enemy combatants in these houses. In these houses are enemy combatants who want to kill you, maim you, and destroy you. They want to destroy our way of life. And that's it.
Islam is not a religion of peace.
Shared this before. Kill any Christians you find. They can be easily found. You can use anything. For example, a car, video the process, run them over while passing. This is a major, major issue for me. Again, they're just saying flat out murder any Christian because they don't believe in Allah.
In Sweden and Germany and France, they're putting ads on saying, you are demoralized, you are dead, you are over, give up to the hijab, give up to Muhammad and Allah. Allah Akbar, we're going to stab your daughter at the mall. We're going to stab your wife, your son. We're going to stab you with a butcher knife.
So who are ISIS?
كانوا يشربوا حبوب ويدخلوا على المعارك. انتوا كنتوا تاخذوا حبوب؟ كنا ناخذ حبوب يعني. اي شيوخكم كانوا يعطوكم حبوب. ايه كانوا يعطونا حبوب، قالوا مشان ما تخافوا. مشان ما تخافوا. ايه قال انت عارف انت تسكر مخك، قال له وقت تشرب حبه كبتيكول او زلام تفوت على المعركه ما تحس يعني ما تحس. مصاري وفلوس. كانوا يعطونا ايه مصاري، يعني كانوا غالينا بالمصاري وسلاح وسيارات وشو ما بدكم نجيب لكم. من وين الفلوس من داعش؟ من السعوديه ومن تركيا كان يجينا من داعش. وكل السلاح وكل كله يجي من الخارج، يجينا دعم سلاح وفلوس كل شيء يعني.
Well, they're clearly mercenaries. Majority are probably religious mercenaries, but mercenaries nevertheless, who seem to have a safe zone in the Golan Heights, next to Israel. No crisis there, as in years of being on Israel's doorstep, they have never attacked. Although in November of 2016, ISIS did fire at an Israeli unit that they mistook as Syrian, since it was on the Syrian border. None were wounded, and ISIS did apologize for it. Because isn't that what's done when friendly fire occurs?
Israel has this sort of tacit alliance with the al-Qaeda branch in Syria, especially on the border with the Golan Heights, where they've been offering them aid, and they've admitted to this as well, also offering medical treatment to people fighting with al-Nusra, al-Qaeda's affiliate in Syria, and then sending them back into the battlefield. And so there is this tacit alliance.
You heard right. It's been well documented for a long time that Israel provides medical aid to terrorists. They've openly talked about it.
There have been reports that Israel's been treating wounded Syrian rebel fighters in its hospitals on the border, including fighters from Nusra Front, which is, of course, the al-Qaeda proxy in Syria. Do those reports worry you that Israel's helping wounded al-Qaeda-aligned fighters?
As I said before, in a different context, it's always useful also to deal with your enemies in a humane way. And I think that when you have people who are wounded and you can deal with them in a humane way, the considerations as to whether to take them in are not simply whether it's politically useful or whether it's politically
So it's purely humanitarian, you say? So there's no tactical or political strategic...
I didn't say there's no tactical. I said the main consideration, the immediate consideration is humane.
But the tactical issues involved, I mean, you know better than me the phrase blowback. You don't think there's going to be blowback against Israel if you get into bed with a group like Nusra Front?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's going to be blowback.
Why?
Because I think that, unfortunately, the rules of the game in Syria are such that you can do anything that is not possible to be done anywhere else.
Yeah, I think people said that in Afghanistan too.
Of course, like all Zionists, he can't help but be a massive hypocrite.
Would you also treat Hezbollah fighters?
No, I would not treat...
Have you not just contradicted what you told me 60 seconds ago about humanely treating your enemies?
No. I think as far as Hezbollah fighters are concerned, with them we have a different account.
So let me be clear, you're happy to treat al-Qaeda fighters, but not Hezbollah fighters?
We have a different account with Hezbollah, a totally different account.
One could easily perceive that as Hezbollah not being their proxy army. Israel has also done far more than just provide medical aid.
Rania, what was your reaction to news that Israel bombed a Syrian military airport last night?
I mean, I was surprised by it, but at the same time, throughout the civil war in Syria, Israel has repeatedly, at times, bombed Syrian military installations.
That's an understatement. They've been doing it far more frequently as time goes on, as their proxy armies are losing ground. This is an article from 2014.
Not once has it ever bombed the al-Qaeda groups that are in Syria, just the Syrian military. In fact, some people in the Syrian government often will refer to Israel as al-Qaeda's air force.
Some would like you to believe that it's coincidence that ISIS and fellow rebels attack Syrian forces directly after Israeli airstrikes. But what they don't hide is the fact that they prefer ISIS over a 3-time elected official.
The Institute for Security Studies, which is this really important Israeli think tank, released this 300-page strategic paper for the Israeli government, and it was written by top military and political figures in Israel, and it had a section on Syria, and it basically said Israel's position is that the best thing for Israel is to remove the Syrian government in power now and replace it with some sort of Sunni sectarian state. I assume, you know, in the image of what you would call like Saudi Arabia, or any of the states that actually support the rebels.
An Israeli puppet, in other words, that won't stand in the way of their greater Israel project. Are you still not convinced who ISIS serves? What if I told you an Israeli minister admitted cooperating with ISIS? What if I told you an Israeli general got caught commanding ISIS and admitted to it? What if I told you a former Israeli minister claimed they have complete control over ISIS? Do you see it yet? What Assad has been trying to tell the West for a while?
For me, it's a very strange thing. Daesh, ISIS, with their ideology, never threat Israel. Yeah. And Israel never threat Daesh, exactly. ISIS. It's like some kind of agreement about, maybe not on friendship, but neutrality. Why you think it's like this? And what's the role of Israel in this war?
Not only ISIS, not only, of course, or Daesh, not only al-Nusra, anyone, any terrorist who hold a machine gun and started killing and destroying Syria was supported by Israel, either indirectly through the logistical support on the frontier, or sometimes by direct intervention by Israel against Syria in different areas in Syria. Why? Because Israel, our enemy, because they occupy our lands, and they look at Syria as enemy, of course. And for them, they think if they undermine the position of Syria and make it weaker as a whole, as society, as the army, as a state, that will prevent Israel from moving toward the peace. And the price of the peace is to get back the Golan Heights to Syria. So for them, Syria will be busy with another issue now. It won't be busy to talk about the Golan or the peace process, or even to do anything to get back its land. That's why Israel is supporting every terrorist, and there's no contradiction between Israel and any organization like al-Nusra or ISIS or any Al-Qaeda link organization.
Your army lost a lot of blood.
Or do you still wish to believe a well-known war criminal in charge of a regime that's in the process of ethnic cleansing, that throws a tantrum every time he's asked to respect international law?
Mr. President, I appreciate your commitment to that principle, your commitment to the security of the one and only Jewish state, which is entrusted with securing the Jewish future. You said, Mr. President, just now, that we must confront evil in the world. We must confront the barbarians. They are, sadly, still with us. I want to say something about the bloody horror in Manchester last night. The slaughter of innocents must be unconditionally condemned and unflinchingly confronted, no matter where it occurs. In Manchester, San Bernardino, or Jerusalem, terror is terror is terror. We must all unite to defeat it. Mr. President, today you call the terrorists losers. I know you agree with me that it's our job to make sure that they continue to lose. We will defeat them. Thank you. Thank you to First Lady Melania Trump. Thank you for taking such a strong stand for Israel and the Jewish people. It comes from the heart of all of us. Thank you, Mr. President.
So when you see this, if you don't think Zionists are directly involved, shouldn't you have some anger towards those who fund and protect them? There's good reason why so many refer to ISIS as Israeli Secret Intelligence Service.
You tell the story about how you tried to find out what they call the Mossad when they deal with publicly?
I thought it was a reasonable question, but the trouble is you can't pick up the phone book. There's no Langley in Israel that you can look up, CIA, or in our case, the Mossad. We thought we should ask, what shall we call it in English? You can translate the Hebrew words, as I said, Mossad is institute, but when they write a letter to their friends in the CIA or the British intelligence, what do they call themselves? It took a while. It was a matter of asking the Prime Minister's spokesman. The best you could do, because officially the Mossad is under the Prime Minister's office. And I think he sort of wondered why you want to know and all that, so we explained. And he came up with the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. I mean, if it were to have initials, it would be ISIS.
Hey, thanks for watching, and if you like this video, here are a couple others you may enjoy. All of my videos are free to share, and if you enjoy hearing a different opinion, no matter how unpopular, don't be scared to subscribe or follow, as I can also be found on Minds, Steemit, and Twitter. Till next time, salut!